Hello everybody, I'm Kate Cass, and welcome to our edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about Doctor Whooves. There's a name we haven't heard in a while, huh? In case you missed the post about it, this year is the 10th anniversary of Let's Talk About. So I thought a fun thing to do for the anniversary year would be to revisit topics we haven't covered in a while. And for me, a good place to go would be revisiting the subject of my very first themed series, Doctor Whooves Month. Back in 2017, I reviewed the most popular incarnations of this fan-made crossover between Doctor Who and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, which I have credited often for jump-starting my love for both series. And it turned out to be a group of videos that got seen by some pretty noteworthy people in that community. I even wrote an editorial on Equestria Daily on the Star-Crossed Stallion a while back, which was also pretty well received. Is it egotistical to say I've become kind of an authority on the subject? I don't think so. I don't think there's much competition. Well, sadly, Doctor Whoves Adventures hasn't returned from over a decade of radio silence. Doctor Whoves and Assistant has concluded its first season of audio drama since my original video, and at the time of recording this one, is getting ready to start season 2. So I've had a few people ask me to cover what's come out since we last talked about it, which seemed like a good idea. But the vibe feels a bit different for me going into this review because I know these people now. Well, not all of them. I know some of the team members. Funny story. In the lead up to Doctor Whoves and Assistant Season 1 finale, the Ponies with Pockets team were doing a marathon of past episodes on their Discord server. I was in the chat for the rewatch of Wrong Way Backwards when someone on the team recognized me from my Doctor Whoves editorial. And then a couple other members recognized me after I brought up my Wrong Way Backwards video, and they invited me into a post-watch party call. I wound up in a few more calls. I got to know some of the people involved with Whoves and Assistant. Some were very eager to tell me about their own Doctor Who's projects, which was cool, and suddenly some of my old artwork was being added to the cinematic cut of Wrong Way Backwards, and I wound up on the team of the Chronicles of Doctor Who's, which has become a who's who of Who's projects. It all happened so fast. It's been a wild year. I felt like that was a bit of an important disclaimer to put in here. I am still first and foremost a fan. The perspective has just changed a bit now. I have more understanding about what goes into making an episode and the people behind it, but I don't have any insider information. They don't tell me anything. I am still going to be just as honest as I always am about my thoughts, which deep down is what I know the Ponies with Pockets team would want. So to anyone I know on the crew who are watching this, which I know some of you are, I appreciate what you do. I am going to treat this with just as much respect as I always have, and when it comes to any of the things I will be critical about, know that it comes from a place of love. Please don't unfriend me. So what happened since 2017? Well, simultaneously, so much and not a lot. After the Isle of Flapida, Doctor Who's and Assistant went sort of quiet. The channel was still somewhat active with gaming uploads and the occasional short, but as for the main series, various complications behind the scenes and real-life obligations were stalling production on episode 12. How much was it stalled? Well, episode 11 came out in June of 2016. Then a teaser for episode 12 was uploaded in December of 2017 to build anticipation for the first part of the next adventure, which debuted in September of 2019. Yeah, it was clear things were slowing down, but it's not too surprising. Fan projects like this are demanding, especially when they're long-running and have a high-quality standard to them. These things are a labor of love, usually made by young fans. But as time goes on and people get older, life gets more busy and complicated, and productions like this take a back seat. The crew still loved the project and were determined to finish what they started with episode 12, but after that, on February 14th, 2020, DW&A creator Bald Dumbo Rat posted an announcement video saying that there would be no more full episodes produced. He planned to finish the story by publishing the scripts online, and then let him and the rest of the team move on. It was a sad, but understandable update. They weren't stopping because they wanted to, their time was just needed elsewhere. Anyone who's worked on a project that you love but don't make any money from, that takes a lot of time, can relate to this, I'm sure. And I appreciated Jitter's attempts to try and get the story finished in some capacity. That said, it wasn't the most loving news to get on Hearts and Hooves Day. Was this a sign of things to come in 2020? This is a time travel show, did they know? This was the show's fate for a while. They even did a dramatic reading of the script for episode 13, since it was gonna be such an important episode, but aside from that, it seemed like the series that made Doctor Who so popular was destined to be concluded through a Google Doc. It's something, but it was still disappointing. At least, that's how it felt at the time. See, here's the thing about time. It changes. It always does. Sure, the team couldn't commit as much time and energy to the project as they used to, but when the project that is struggling has been going on for so long and has many creative fans of its own, some of them might just come to the rescue when you need them most.
You've touched so many lives, saved so many people. Did you think when your time came, you'd really have to do more than just ask?
In January of 2021, Doctor Whooves and Assistant announced they were back, with a production team ready to come in and help them create full audio dramas again. On the 1-year anniversary of when the show was officially declared dead, it rose again with a fully produced episode 13. Nature was truly healing, and it's been pretty smooth sailing ever since. Sure, episodes take longer to come out than they did in the show's early days. In the 4 years since it came back, there's been 4 full episodes and a multitude of shorts, but the wait is usually 100% worth it, as each one has been more ambitious, creative, and dramatic than the last, including the season 1 finale. The last few years have felt like a major comeback for DW&A, which made me eager to return to it for another video when asked. From the outside looking in, it seems like the channel and the community have been more active than it ever has been. It's been awesome to see one of my favorite fan projects be revived like this instead of quietly going into the night. That said, how are the episodes themselves? Well, they're all so different from each other that I thought this time it would be fun to go over each episode individually and see how they are on their own, since we went over the show as a whole in the last video. So let's begin with... The main reason the hiatus was so agonizing for me was because at the time, this was my most anticipated episode of Whooves and Assistant. Because if you couldn't tell from the title, we've got a Sherlock Holmes crossover. Not quite Wholock or even my long desire crossover between Dr. Whoves' Adventures and Sherlock Holmes, but we'll make do. DW&A has a new twist on their version of Sherlock. This one is loosely based on the version of the Great Detective from the series Elementary, which I have gone on record a few times saying I just never got into. I watched the first 6 or so episodes when it first came out, but I very much preferred Sherlock, as I've talked about quite a bit before, and I couldn't get past the fact it takes place in New York. I still hate that. But for its defenders, after how long it ran for, I have been interested to go back and try it again. I just haven't yet. It's really long. And if this is a love letter to that incarnation, it only makes me want to do that more. I adore this Sherlock, or Hemlock Stones as he's called here, which is a pretty common parody name for Holmes. I think there's even a Muppet version with that name. He's got a lot of the traits I love so much about the detective. His design is excellent, and his dynamic with his companion, inspired by Lucy Lewis Watson, who goes by June Saffron, is very well written. This one has a good amount of fun with this already appealing encounter, putting two of the greatest geniuses in fiction that also desperately need to be the center of attention and be the clever one, offers a lot of humorous conflict between these two stallions, because their approaches are very different. The Doctor is eccentric, Hemlock is blunt. The Doctor is curious, Hemlock is logical. There's a difference between gathering knowledge as you go to discover the truth and relying on the knowledge you've already accumulated to compare to perplexing circumstances. And this episode does a pretty great job demonstrating the differences between these two great minds, even if the circumstances of the story sadly make the Doctor unable to contribute to the resolution. This story is juggling a lot. It's a detective story, there's space stuff involved, we're in Equestria, so there's magic and curses, there's a slowly unraveling mystery and tons of characters. It's a lot to balance in some already pretty demanding genres centered around characters with big personalities, which is why it's so impressive they pulled it off as well as they did. I'm not going to get too deep into the overall mystery, but I will say it has elements of How the Baskervilles, right down to the bona fide name of the rich family the mystery revolves around, with an equestrian/alien twist to it. And without being too specific, the twist around who's behind all this manages to tell a revenge story surrounding a native dweller whose family land was stolen and developed on, without vilifying said native person, which is harder to do than it should be. The cast is big, but they utilize them all excellently. It's a wide variety of ponies with different skills and points of view, and by the end, they all play an essential part in uncovering the overall mystery and finding a peaceful resolution to it. From heritage to knowledge to observation to compassion and empathy. This group has got it all. One of the best ensemble casts in a DW&A story, right alongside Terror and Call Upon the Doctor. The only pony who doesn't do much of anything is Derpy, since she is missing for most of the episode, for reasons we'll go more into later in the video. I may be giving the game up early, but this might be my favorite of the new episodes. It's a bit long, the longest story we're discussing in this video in fact, but I can't say most of what's in it isn't essential. The cast turned in great work, it's creative, mysterious, and has a group of ponies that I would love to see again someday. Maybe in some shorts, perhaps? It was worth the wait. As a brony, a Whovian, and Sherlockian, I approve of it on every count. In fact, it's a story so big, it wasn't even contained to this one mystery. There's even more to uncover in the following episode. The almost lost episode. Where Elementary's magic felt like a final sprint before eventually turning in the towel, what frightens the fearless is metaphorically summoning the strength to get back on your feet and keep running the race. Which is good, because this story does indeed get to a point we've wanted to see in the show for a while. Remember all the way back in episode 3 during the Doctor and Derpy's first adventure together, where they run into Luna and she says this?
Doctor, it's you!
Oh. It's a blue pony. Like that bird, I think.
We are delighted to see you once more, and thank thee for thy help.
Hadn't she? Ah! She knew me!
Well, guess what, every pony? It's time for the timey-wimey explanation to how she knew the Doctor. The trail begins with a breed of flowers from Elementary's magic, which the Doctor says originated from the moon. Eager to find out what these plants are and their strange properties, the TARDIS trio head off to explore the moon in the past to discover more about them. They don't really find anything, it winds up being kind of a drop plot point, but nobody cares, so This one feels like classic brony content to me, exploring the possibilities of the original villain of the series, Nightmare Moon, and the mind games she might have been capable of with her power over Pony's dreams and ruling over the night that the show was never quite able to or interested in delving into. That's what fan-made content is for, to go that extra bit deeper with mildly explored concepts from great stories. This also happens to dabble in one of my favorite tropes, forcing characters to confront their nightmares. For a bit, they're all separated and left to navigate these nightmares on their own, all handling it differently. The Doctor manages to figure out the trap pretty quickly and sets about investigating right away to help his companions, finding a little moon critter. Aw, he's so cute. He looks like a Neopet. Derpy's nightmare is being pressed to confirm the show's true OTP, which certainly has a comedic angle to it, but I feel like also has a bit of commentary with how it plays out. Every pony around Derpy is just asking who she'll make her special sun pony between the Doctor and Tik Tok, but it's so absurd she winds up breaking free from the nightmare on her own and pieces together a lot about these moon creatures and how the nightmare has influenced them. I think it's a good bait and switch on how people, both ponies and viewers, can underestimate Derpy sometimes. But the most impactful segments revolve around Tik Tok's nightmares. There have been hints that there's more to Tik Tok's story. It's never been a huge focus, but people definitely noticed. This is where that mystery is brought center stage. The nightmare torments Tik Tok's with the uncertainties of his past and how that's shaped who he's become, searching for answers in a quest that's labeled him as more of an outcast. Tik Tok wasn't just lost when he was little, but he has no memory of his life before, with the only clue to any past being a locked box that he held onto, with a strong sense that it was important, but not really knowing why. As a longtime fan, it was cool to hear characters like Lionheart and Lightwing again, as well as more clues to what Tik Tok's life growing up in Nayers was like. He struggles the most with facing the nightmares he's placed into, forced to relive all the times he was shunned, how he tried to be daring and got paralyzed in the process, and how he felt lost even with tremendous gifts of innovation, but with no understanding of why he's so different. Succumbing to Nightmare Moon's influence out of the smallest desire that it will make the noise stop, even if it means it's replaced with darkness. It adds much more substance to Tik Tok's story and creates a fruitful mystery for the viewers to speculate on. There were only the barest of breadcrumbs before, and until this point, I personally didn't think there was too much more to Tik Tok's story that could lead to a larger story. Aside from that constant tick in his head, which feels kind of similar to something else.
There is a tick in my head. Not the bug, an actual noise. It's my thinking sound. It drives my mind to be active almost constantly.
It's a set of events that are very well presented and really compelling. The only part that might top it is the climax, a confrontation between the Doctor and Nightmare Moon nearly a decade in the making. When Nightmare Moon wants the Doctor to join her side, being as persuasive as she can with a pretty good song to sell it, the Doctor challenges her to a battle. Not of strength, not of wit, but of who can truly conjure and face the worst nightmares imaginable. What I really love about this confrontation is that it's a cool twist on a villain wanting to turn a main hero to their side, and seeing what a terrible idea that would be. What horror it would unleash if the Doctor became like her, finding not an accomplice, but a new nightmare of their own creation. Why precisely? We are all lucky that the Doctor faces the worst the universe has to offer, and chooses mercy and hope first. Like I said, What Frightens the Fearless delves into some of my favorite tropes and explores this premise rather well, answering older questions and asking some new ones to replace them. Although this cover art did make me think we were gonna get, like, a nightmare Doctor, so I was kind of disappointed at the time that we didn't, but as discussed a minute ago, maybe that was for the best. Reunited and freed from the nightmare, this group could use a lighter adventure, and I'm sure that's exactly what they'll get. Alright, this one. Never mind, time for more horror. And you know we're in for a special ride when they felt the need to put a viewer disclaimer at the beginning of the video. So let's dive right in. When the TARDIS mysteriously goes haywire and winds up parked in the Everfree Forest, again, might want to look into that one day, the group follow a mysterious pony into a small town isolated in the forest, occupied by a small community of Earth ponies with no cutie marks. And naturally, where there's something perplexing in the Doctor's immediate vicinity, he's gotta look into it. It's been that way for over 60 years now. Now, I didn't know this at the time, because I can't read the description apparently, but Sunnytown is inspired by an old MLP fan game, Story of the Blank, where Applebloom stumbles upon this very same town and discovers its dark secrets. It's a simple analog horror game, but was so creepy to players that it earned creepypasta status. And I'd say the Ponies with Pockets team did a really good job recapturing that unsettling vibe before anything remotely disturbing actually happens. The way the town's ponies are so blissfully unaware of elements from the outside world, and this strange compulsion where none of them want to leave, really gives the setting and its denizens an uncomfortable, off-kilter vibe. Unaware of things from unicorns to Pegasi to certain foods to excelling or being passionate about skills, the contentedness to find neutrality acceptable really makes this place creepy in that classic Stepford smile way. And it's an attitude that kind of goes against everything Doctor Who stands for when you think about it, so I can see why the DW&A team found inspiration in this. The premise of Story of the Blank, of finding cutie marks unsettling and perverse, was kind of ahead of its time. Friendship is Magic wouldn't explore that until much later, but with less disturbing results. Sort of. You can't have a nightmare if you never dream. Again, in classic horror fashion, the story takes the idea of standing against nonconformity or things you don't understand, like, say, getting a cutie mark, and twisting it to the most extreme result. A twist that's really intense in how quickly things escalate. For the most part, the Doctor and companions spend most of the episode wandering around trying to figure out what's off about this place, but even though they only play a small part in this, the events and circumstances still take a toll on our time-traveling team, more than any adventure so far has. At least Terror, and to an extent Isle of Flappida, felt somewhat triumphant, like they made a difference, or they could come back and help one day. This time, the end result is just sad and horrible, and it takes a while for every pony to really process how things played out. The biggest being Derpy and Tik Tok's feelings towards the Doctor after all this happened. This encounter is brief, but it shows a darker side to the Doctor as the vengeance of the town's ponies is carried out by other forces. It's no secret that underneath all his rapturous laughter and silly enthusiasm, this incarnation of the Doctor can be very dark, more interested in taking out a problem before it can do more harm, if he doesn't see there's something truly good worth saving underneath. Sunnytown has a really simple but effective way of using the curse on this town to bring that out again. While the Doctor just wants to push it aside and move on to something fun again, the others, especially Ditzy, need time to deal with what they took part in. But the two of them can take comfort in being there for each other during stressful times, because no matter what they face, no matter how terrifying or uncertain, they'll have each other. It's not a happy ending, but a sign that they could get there. Alright, now our favorite time-traveling ponies can relax, for real this time, and that's exactly what happens. The first 25 minutes is nothing but leisure time and observational antics with the Doctor, Ditzy, and Tik Tok. If you're one of those people who loves wholesome content, and your fave's just having a good time chilling after some intense adventures, this episode was made for you. for the first half. I gotta admire how long they stuck with the wholesomeness. I think when you watch this, there's an underlying anxiety waiting for the other horseshoe to drop, but it takes a long time to get there, so I could see some audience members letting their guard down. That's what makes the severity of the eventual rug pull so much more shocking. Princess Celestia summons and imprisons the Doctor and sends the TARDIS off to Tartarus, somehow, with Derpy and Tik Tok still inside. You know, there's been a lot of separating the Doctor and their companion situations out there, but this is one of the more extreme I've heard. Alright, let's tackle these one at a time. Why did Celestia summon the Doctor? Well, it turns out this is their first proper encounter because she heard about the Doctor through tales of his encounters through time. It's interesting because it both shows how the Doctor, a relative unknown in this universe when he got there, is slowly building his original reputation back up, and how Celestia is handling being ruler at this point in time. This all happens roughly in the middle of Luna's banishment, and the weight of the crown she now carries on her own puts a not often depicted strain on Celestia. I really like this angle. She feels guilt for her actions and stress from ruling on her own, but still wants to be strong and keep Equestria thriving as best she can, especially as Equestria is, in the grand scheme of things, a fairly young settlement. Doing what she needs to protect it, like using dubious methods to force the Doctor to help her. Meanwhile, Ditzy and Tik Tok have an interesting encounter of their own. They do the smart thing for a while and stay in the TARDIS, knowing nothing out there can get in, until they hear another pony. Some pony who was also lost down there, with no memories of who he was before he wound up in Tartarus, and out on a mission with an unknown purpose. He also sounds quite familiar. The thing that gives this episode replay value are the little cryptic hints we get. Even in the wholesome half, the Doctor talks briefly about how he wound up in Equestria before changing the subject as soon as possible. There's not too much there, but it's the most information we've gotten on where the Doctor was in this timeline before he got here, and people have theorized quite a bit from just that part alone. Derpy starts having these logical lapses where she'll use more human phrases like hand and people without even realizing it, but starts to put great stress on her. They find a key in Tik Tok's goggles that opens the locked compartment of his box, and of course, this mysterious pony they find. Voiced by the original actor of Doctor Whooves, dressed in what look like Gallifreyan robes, and having an almost sixth sense that draws him to the TARDIS, calm and reserved until something inside of him is triggered and shouts ominous warnings about Derpy and Tik Tok. At least that's what it seems. They leave pretty quickly after this with no further clues as to who that pony was or why he was so threatened by them. But again, it's another healthy place for theories to grow from. The warnings and titles are pretty cryptic, so there's no clear answers yet, not even to what's truly inside Tik Tok's box, even after it's opened, but it really piques viewer curiosity in the show's overall mystery more than most of the episodes before it. And if that wasn't enough, the episode ends on a classic Who cliffhanger, thanks to a returning villain.
Oh no. No, not here. Get behind me! Exterminate!
Talk about a cliffhanger.
We finally got Daleks, guys! It took like 12 years, but here we are. I was so shocked by this reveal. See, there's me in the premiere chat being shocked. And that brings us to the long-awaited season finale. Yeah, wait. Before we go any further.
Spoilers.
I know I've already mentioned some spoilers, but a lot of big stuff happens in this episode, so if you haven't watched the season finale of Doctor Whooves and Assistant yet, you may want to proceed with caution. Are they gone? Good, because anyone who has seen this finale knows that the shocking moments occur mere seconds after the episode begins.
Exterminate!
Doctor, no!
TikTok!
Tik Tok is killed by a Dalek. This was a complete shock and unprecedented for a number of reasons. For one, Tik Tok had become an incredibly popular character on the show. The most popular, in fact. So this was already pretty gutsy, but then to do it at the very beginning of the episode, meaning the Doctor and Derpy have to face the Daleks and whatever crisis there is in this finale while dealing with the sudden loss of their friend. That's kind of unheard of. Usually death happens at the end of an episode, so the ugly grieving happens in between stories and we don't gotta deal with that. But here, no shots are missed, no punches are pulled. Tik Tok was killed, and the Doctor and Ditzy have to face the monsters that took his life so heartlessly while coping as best they can with that loss. It was a bold action to take, and they treat it with all the weight it deserves. When he's gone, Tik Tok still leaves a tremendous void in the lives of his friends, manages to be instrumental to helping them save Equestria even after death, and with his last moments shows how happy they made him until the very end, with a smile. Even if I wasn't entirely convinced that this is in fact the end of Tik Tok's story, but more on that later. Meanwhile, while they're dealing with all of that, other stuff is happening in this episode, like the Daleks. Why are there Daleks? How is that possible? Well, I'll tell you in case you decide to forego the spoiler warning and stick around, because they are after Time Lords. Not specifically the Doctor, though, but pony Time Lords, which are a thing, apparently. This was a huge bombshell to drop and could have gone so wrong by bringing in too much too quickly, but after the initial shock wore off, I think they handled it well. The 8 remaining Time Lords are a great bunch of characters, including a pony version of the Corsair, nice touch there, and a great performance by Extra Flux, and the circumstances turn this whole thing into a curious what if. For these are the last Time Lords in this universe, stragglers from this universe's version of the Time War, with the last factions on both sides fighting to survive, meaning these are Daleks native to the pony universe. You can tell from their pastel and rainbow color palettes that somehow don't look silly, and pointed bulbs that look like pony ears in some of the art at least. But these Daleks are just as much ruthless killing machines as the ones we know, and these Time Lords don't even have any means of time travel. And I think that's what saves this reveal from completely swallowing up the story. There isn't a whole civilization to discover, more time travel to wrap our heads around, we're not gonna go to Gallifrey or whatever. These are now ponies who were once powerful, and when given a beacon of hope encountering the Doctor and his TARDIS, are only focused on saving themselves, instead of the innocent, unaware ponies that got caught in the crossfires. Battle's End is an all-out war that the Doctor and company are dropped in the middle of. All sides, from the Daleks to the Time Lords to even Celestia, are focused on self-preservation and twisting some of their moral ground to maintain it. The attitude of Celestia in particular offers a new angle on a figure who, in theory at least, seems untouchable in power and wisdom compared to any pony else, making her a desperate leader just trying to keep a crumbling kingdom together on her own. But what ultimately makes progress in this fight is ponies taking action for others. Tik Tok sacrificed his life to protect the Doctor, Derpy keeps every pony on track to find resolution so the fighting will stop, and the Doctor will only help if he can save as many ponies as possible, equestrian or alien. This becomes a second chance for him. He is appalled by the Time Lord's actions and will only help them on his terms, but he can't help but be intrigued by the possibility of being able to save some of his kind this time. We may not know the state of the Doctor's life before he landed in Equestria, but we've seen who he's been since. Some pony who has a vengeful side, yet he finds humor and joy in this quaint pastel universe he dropped into. Who thought he'd seen everything the universe has to offer, only to wind up somewhere full of new discoveries he admires all the time. Who is dark and forceful in the name of protecting the innocent ponies he's grown to love, who have rarely encountered anything resembling the horrors he has. Who is the most powerful and knowledgeable being in the room, yet he encourages ponies to spread the hope and love that they already embody in the face of what they believe to be insurmountable odds. That's exactly what he does here, as he doesn't save the day and stop the Daleks on his own, even though every pony is looking at him to do so. Instead, he gives them the tools to do it themselves, reconfiguring Tik Tok's invention, trusting Ditzy to spread the word, amplifying Celestia's magic and re-establishing her subjects' trust in her, and encouraging the Time Lords to stay put and maybe see what this world truly has to offer once the Daleks are defeated and they don't have to run for their lives. It's a climax that, in a way, represents one of the major themes of Doctor Who, that anyone is capable of doing remarkable things and making a difference. In Doctor Who, some are just lucky enough to have a strange alien in a flying box come along and show them that, alongside a major theme in Friendship is Magic, that strength comes from unity and trust. And rainbow lasers, that helps too. Self-contained, and as a conclusion to this first round of adventures with the Doctor and Derpy, it is pretty uplifting, until we're reminded all too plainly that not every pony made it out of this battle. Again, as tough as it was to watch the first time around, I respect that DW&A ended on such a bitter note. These two are still grieving and have to go their separate ways for now to deal with this. They even put Derpy's classic "I just don't know what went wrong" line into a much more tragic context.
Why did it all go so wrong?
Not cool, guys. This fundamentally shook up the status quo of the series, and that means it's going to be even more uncertain how things go from here. But for now, that's all the episodes of Doctor Whooves and Assistant that have come out since the last video. Now, before we go into the overall thoughts and potential theorizing, I want to highlight the production work a bit. For one thing, they got some new artists on board with this project, on top of the talented few who have been around since before the hiatus. You've been looking at most of it throughout the video, and it consists of a lot of varied and distinct styles that I absolutely love, including some fan submissions submitted pieces, like, well, would you look at that, there's some of mine. There's even been a couple of animated sequences sprinkled throughout, which is always a great surprise. These may be audio dramas first and foremost, but if Bride of Discord taught me anything, it's that little bursts from still images to fluid animation to help illustrate a scene can get a great reaction. The voice acting is just as good as always, but with some more intense and dramatic scenes in these last few adventures than in episodes past, the cast had some really big challenges to tackle performance-wise, and they all rise to the occasion pretty excellently. Especially Jester Dorama and Pegasus Brill, who were the newcomers before, but had become integral to the project's identity. But we're just gonna address this elephant in the room real quick because it's the most noticeable change voice-wise: Derpy's voice. For those who don't know, Jitters, the creator of DWNA and Derpy's voice actor, transitioned in the middle of the hiatus, meaning his voice changed, but he decided to continue playing the character. There were a lot of remarks about this when the new voice debuted, to the point they dedicated an entire short to giving it an in-universe explanation after how distracting people found it. Some even went so far as to say Derpy doesn't sound right anymore, and this ruined the show for them. To that, I am going to ask you politely and with the utmost respect to get over it. It does take some getting used to, it does sound off in the beginning, even Jitters will admit that, but that's because he was getting used to performing with his new voice and nothing to do with the voice itself. As the episodes go on, it does sound much more organic and really meets the necessities of the script, especially by Battle's End, which might be one of his best performances to date. All I'm saying is, if it bothered you, go back, stick with it, and try again. Because if you bailed because of that change, you're missing out. That's not even getting into all the one-off performances throughout these episodes. From returning longtime talent to newcomers quickly making a name for themselves in the community, everyone does a marvelous job bringing these stories to life, personifying and overall upgrading the production of this fan project that regenerated it. Yes, of course I had to use that word. Every episode of, let's call it Season 1B, was ambitious in its own way, carrying a lot of the things that made Doctor Whooves and Assistant a fun project in the first place, and pushing the concept to tell more complex stories. Having fun with dropping the Doctor into a familiar area of Equestria, usually related to an interest in classic brony fandom, and seeing how he tackles it. But there's definitely a lot left to do. Even after making an entire season of audio dramas, there's still a lot of unanswered questions. The only major mystery resolved by the season's end is how Celestia and Luna knew the Doctor. Everything else is up in the air. How the Doctor got here, Derpy's odd lapses in the penultimate episode, why the TARDIS keeps winding up in the Everfree Forest, the involvement of the Time Ponies and the mysterious pony in Tartarus, and Tik Tok's origins. That last one might seem like a closed book since Tik Tok died, but I doubt it for that very reason. I just don't buy that the team would spend that much time showing off the mystery of where Tik Tok came from and the task of opening this literal mystery box that could answer all of his questions without an explanation for it. You don't put puzzle pieces out there without intending to connect them, unless you're Empire of Death. Look, all I'm saying is, it's pretty strange that even in all that destruction, they don't find Tik Tok's body, when he insisted they leave him right away, right after he unlocked the box that allegedly had nothing inside, and then Top Hat just happens to show up out of nowhere. Yeah, remember him? That unicorn in the hat who also has an unknown genesis, and in this appearance is confirmed to be a Time Lord, and isn't able to get a word in with the Doctor to explain why he's there? Isn't that interesting? You know what else is interesting? Remembering what Celestia's message was to the Doctor all the way back in episode 5.
The time will come when your allies will be lost, and a sacrifice will lead you to victory. But what is lost may always be found.
This is the only mystery as of right now I feel like I could give a substantial theory to, and I know I'm not the only one who has, but it's an idea that excites me and I wanted to put it out there. It feels good to have enough pieces to one of these mysteries to form a substantial theory that can get people excited for future adventures. Especially since there was a time where I didn't think we'd get more adventures with ponies with pockets. And now look where we are. Overall, Season 1B reinvigorated Doctor Whooves and Assistant, making it realize more of its potential by people caring enough about it to help save it. Everyone in the fandom space has probably got a couple of stories of an amazing fan project that was left incomplete, and that makes sense. Like I said, life happens, priorities change, or sometimes people just run out of steam. For a while, it seemed like DWNA was just going to join a graveyard that was already getting pretty full. Instead, it's had one of the best comebacks in fandom history, especially in the brony community, being more active than ever, not just with regular episodes, but gaming content, multiple shorts to satisfy viewers in between bigger uploads, lots of fan-driven events that, again, I've also actively participated in a few times, and something I like to call Doctor Whooves and Assistant Abridged. If you don't know, these were YouTube shorts recapping every episode of the first season, and they are pretty wild.
The woes of being immortal makes me weak. I shall become a beep boop queen.
But what about sisterly love?
Oh, I almost forgot about that. Okay, I'm better now.
You can't trick me, I'm slime.
Wait, I know what to do. It's a metaphor for capitalism. TikTok, kiss me. In front of everyone? Yes, you mean that much to me. No, I'm too
Conservative to erase the rainbow.
We're married now.
It's on the modest side in terms of views these days, at least compared to what it used to be, but it still does pretty well and has a lot more to offer its audience than it used to. In some ways, it's gotten bigger since I last talked about it, keeping the core of what made the premise appealing, while stretching their creative muscles to see what they could do. Doctor Whooves and Assistant was almost the final breath of this beloved fan-made crossover. A crossover that was once thriving, that at the time of me writing that Equestria Daily editorial was dying, or at the very least endangered. We did have Doctor Who's living legacy keeping it alive though. Thanks guys. But since DWNA's comeback, it has become an ambassador of sorts to Doctor Who's as a whole, reinvigorating interest in the crossover, fostering a bunch of new talent who would go on to headline projects of their own, reviving the whole concept, for itself, for new projects, and for some long unheard voices.
Hello again. I'm the Doctor.
And I'm Twilight Sparkle.
She's having a joy overload!
As of the making of this video, Season 2 is still on the horizon. Like I said at the beginning, I have gotten to know some of the people involved with Ponies of Pockets, so I know for a fact that they are not only just excited for what's coming next as their fans are, if not more so, but are very dedicated and working very hard to make every episode as good as it can be. So far they succeeded, with talent both old and new, and I have no doubt that they will continue to. And I can't wait to see what that looks like. In the meantime, watch Chronicles of Doctor Whooves and subscribe to the Equestrian Broadcast channel. We're so close to 500 subscribers and the show is really good. I'm not just saying that because I'm on the team. I'm saying that this enthusiastically because I'm on the team, but it's great, I promise. Go listen to it. Okay, Avante, bye. Thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely let me know what you thought of Doctor Whooves and Assistant in the comments below, and maybe what you're looking forward to seeing in Season 2. That's why the series is called Let's Talk About. I want to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Jinx Productions and Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check my Patreon page at the link in the description, as well as my other social media if you'd like to check any of those. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.